from the sky, from a bomb fired by an enemy thousands of miles away. The bomb which could be the opening of World War III. It is to prevent the firing of such a bomb that we of the United Nations have struggled on the Italian front, the Western front, the Eastern front, throughout the Balkans, halfway around the world, in China, in Burma, in the Atlantic, up and down the Pacific, wherever the enemy can be brought to bay, to make possible a peace more permanent than a breathing spell between devastating wars. There is another front as well, of the mind and of the heart, the old-fashioned things held so very dear, watching our straight-backed children knocking them out in the ballpark, or raising the racket of noise that is the sound of kids who are happy and unafraid. Happy and unafraid. Unafraid as they play before us of the unspeakable message that comes by telegram and letter to their parents, who longed for a sane and peaceful world, designed for living rather than dying, but who receive instead this. No parent ever gets the sad words of death, but who asks, why can't we organize a world in which people can work and live in peace? In their homes, in stores, shops, offices, they ask it over and over again. Can't we organize a world that will not fall apart every 25 years?
Hiya, Mac. What's with this Dumbarton Oaks business?
I beg your pardon.
What gives at Dumbarton Oaks?
Oh, why, Dumbarton Oaks is the name of the place where representatives of the four great powers met to draw up plans for a world organization to prevent future wars.
Oh, another one of them things, huh? Bunch of lugs getting together to beat their chops about peace. We ain't going to get peace just by talking about it. Somebody's got to start doing something about it. There's a lot of talk about peace after the last war, and what did it get us? Hitler.
You don't understand. This meeting will lead up to the formation of a great cosmic force, which, if utilized and implemented, will effectually guarantee peace.
You don't say.
When the causes of war are removed, it follows there can be no more wars.
Just a minute, sir. That's the general idea, but it's not quite as simple as that. Preventing wars is a very complex business, much more complex than causing them. An organization for preventing wars isn't a thing that can be brought about in a day. It started back in Theodore Roosevelt's time, when the Hague Court of Arbitration was set up. Then came the great experiment of Woodrow Wilson's League of Nations, into which was fitted the Statute of the World Court, which Elihu Root helped to draft. But the man on the street, you and I and our neighbor John Smith, and other people like us, were not ready to support in full any world organization to suppress aggression. We were too busy having a good time and making money, so that when we were again threatened, recoiling naturally from the prospect of war, some of us even thought appeasement would work. Remember? And so now we are fighting a second world war. But this time, thank God, as we face the making of the peace, the indifference of 1920 is gone. The leaders of peace-loving nations now working for total victory are already dedicating themselves to the high business of preventing further world disasters in years to come. With intelligent resolve, our government and the governments of the other peace-wanting nations are laying the foundation, stone by stone, of a peace that will last. First of these foundation stones was the Atlantic Charter, later embodied in the Declaration by the United Nations. Then, at Moscow, Secretary Hull, with the foreign ministers of Britain, Russia, and China, agreed upon the necessity of establishing an international organization for the maintenance of peace and security. The Fulbright and Connolly resolutions favoring the creation of such an organization were adopted by overwhelming votes in our Congress. To start the structure of the new peace, conferences were held on food and agriculture at Hot Springs, Virginia, currency stabilization at Bretton Woods, and on other world problems. finally, at Dumbarton Oaks in Washington, D.C., the four great powers brought forth a plan to unite these efforts and to prevent future wars. So, as the war reaches its final stages and the sight of victory comes near, let us look into the future and visualize how this proposed plan would work. Here is one of the many buildings in which tomorrow the General Assembly of the United Nations will be waging not war but peace. Entering will be representatives of all the nations dedicated to peace, large and small, meeting together in sovereign equality. These men and women will be charged by their countries with the job of charting a course that will improve economic and social conditions and lessen the injustices and the frictions that have been responsible for wars. This is not the capital of some super state trying to rule the earth. It represents the mind and conscience of the world. It is the Watchtower over tomorrow. Here, the representatives of all the peace-loving nations of the world will engage in removing the causes of World War III. This General Assembly discusses basic questions and formulates general policies. Underlying its work is the firm knowledge that has been added to the government of men by two wars. That desperation and poverty anywhere on earth endanger not their victims alone, but people everywhere. The knowledge that there must be no dangerous monopolies of things that all people need. That no group of people shall be made helpless victims of the ruthless methods of any other group of peoples. In various parts of the world, there will be special agencies working through the clearinghouse of the Economic and Social Council on the problems of labor, food and agriculture, education and cultural relations, communications, currency stabilization, international trade, and a host of other questions that affect the economic and social well-being of the modern world. Here, the International Court of Justice will sit, where nations will continue to bring questions concerning their rights and their legal responsibilities for interpretation and settlement. We come now to the Security Council. Britain, Russia, China, France, and the United States are permanent members. Their cooperation is necessary to put down any threat to peace. Force cannot be applied without the agreement of all five of them, plus two of the 6 non-permanent members elected by the General Assembly to represent the smaller nations. The Security Council will have heavy responsibilities. One of these is to deal with any disagreements which may arise in spite of the work of the other agencies. If two nations disagree and seem to be headed toward war, the Council does everything possible to work out a friendly arrangement. If this doesn't succeed, the Council discusses the issues and recommends ways of reaching a peaceful settlement. The Council represents the power of the world. It can compel discussion of the world's differences by the vital fact of its existence.
Sounds okay. But what happens if some nation won't play ball?
Play ball.
Well, what if some cluck in some other country decides to jump the organization? Another Hitler pops up. What happens then?
Oh, in that case, well,
Perhaps, gentlemen, if we once more look into the future, we may see how the Security Council would deal with future Hitlers. Tomorrow, unfortunately, no less than yesterday, we may still have a nation strong enough and mad enough to dream that it has the right to rule all others. Mad enough to be plotting immediate aggression against one of its smaller neighbors while outwardly denying that it's actually preparing for war. Yes, this is the moment which the mothers of children years before had foreseen and feared. The cold, contemptuous march for the door that is the walkout on the world's hope for peace. And for the third time, disaster waits for all nations. The delay of even a moment means signing a death warrant for tomorrow. The Security Council acts to wage peace. It immediately consults all of its technical advisory agencies. If circumstances require, it may order all communications cut between aggressor nation X and the outside world. All transportation and communication facilities, such as railroads, wire services, ship lines, airplanes originating outside Nation X would instantly suspend services to that region, paralyzing its economic life. If this does not force Nation X to change its plans for war, the Military Staff Committee, upon order of the Security Council, submits a plan for action. The Council, acting on this advice, requests the chiefs of state of all necessary countries to immediately place at their disposal the quotas of its military contingents as previously agreed upon. The Council acts not to wage a war, but to stop a war before it can get started, to maintain the peace.
I get it. All that happens is like when there's trouble in the neighborhood. Somebody phones the cops, and the riot squad comes over and takes charge of things before the riot gets started.
Yes, yes. You see, it's quite simple, isn't it, when you understand it? Really, it should have been done long ago, you know.
You said it, brother.
Yes, I did, didn't I?
Yes, you did. And you, and you, and you, and you. All of us must go on, not only saying it, but giving it our all-out effort, making tomorrow's peace. The bomb of tomorrow. It must never be fired. So this struggle for peace and security is actually the great second front of this war. The battle to give to our children a decent tomorrow, and the battle in which we must all join. Only here lies the supreme victory, the result that must come from the plan of Dumbarton Oaks, the Crimea and San Francisco conferences. And this, too, is the real goal for which our young manhood spends its precious blood, paying with their lives for a peace we must make secure. And when the fallen of this war are at rest at last, the only monument worthy of being raised over them is the Watchtower over tomorrow's peace.